never thought I'd become the kind of woman to keep secrets from my husband. For the past decade, Ryan and I had shared everything, our dreams, fears, and even our most intimate desires. We were the open-minded couple everyone envied, admired for our adventurous spirit and unbreakable bond. But now, as I sit here with my heart pounding and palms clammy, I'm about to confess something I never thought I'd have to. It all began innocently enough. Ryan and I were always searching for ways to keep our marriage exciting. Date nights, spontaneous vacations, and even a little role-playing were just part of our commitment to each other. Before we dive into this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more compelling narratives. Turn on notifications so you never miss an update. One evening over a bottle of wine, Ryan suggested something that took me completely by surprise. "What if we tried couple swapping?" he asked, his tone casual, as though he was suggesting a new recipe. I laughed, assuming he was joking. "You're serious?" I asked, looking into his deep green eyes. "Why not?" he replied with a mischievous glint. "It's just a game. We'd set boundaries. It's all about trust, no strings attached." The idea was bold, even for us, but the way Ryan explained it made sense. It wasn't about love or replacing each other. It was about exploring together, with complete honesty. After a few long discussions, I finally agreed. We made a pact. It would only happen with mutual consent, and every experience would be a one-time thing. No exceptions. Our first few encounters were thrilling, infusing our relationship with a new spark. I loved the way we'd laugh and talk afterward, as though we were partners in some grand, intimate adventure. Then came the night that changed everything. Ryan had met another couple through an acquaintance. Laura was bubbly and talkative, while her husband, David, was quiet but exuded a quiet confidence. He was tall, with a strong build and a presence that commanded attention without a word. From the moment we met, I felt an undeniable tension whenever David was near. His piercing gaze and the deep timbre of his voice seemed to unravel me. That evening, the four of us gathered at their home. The wine flowed freely, and soon Ryan and Laura excused themselves, disappearing into another room. I was left alone with David. The silence was thick, and for the first time in years, I felt truly nervous. "You don't have to do this if you're uncomfortable," David said softly, his voice steady and reassuring. "I'm fine," I replied, though my voice betrayed me with a slight tremor. David was patient and gentle, yet firm. As the night unfolded, I discovered something I hadn't expected. He was different. His touch, his presence, the way he moved, it was overwhelming and left me utterly breathless. For the first time, I experienced something I couldn't explain. It wasn't just physical. It was as though David unlocked a part of me I didn't know existed. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about him. His voice, his touch, the way he'd made me feel, it lingered like a shadow, intruding on my thoughts, even as I tried to focus on Ryan. I convinced myself it was just a fleeting reaction to something new and exciting. But as days turned into weeks, I realized I was lying to myself. David had left a mark on me that I couldn't ignore. Ryan, oblivious to my inner conflict, carried on as though nothing had changed. To him, the experience was just another chapter in our shared adventure. But for me, it marked the beginning of a secret I would carry alone. Looking back, I wish I had stopped then. I wish I'd told Ryan about my feelings and worked through them together, but I didn't. Instead, I allowed curiosity to take root, and soon, that curiosity grew into something far more dangerous. Days passed, but my mind kept drifting back to David. At first, I told myself it was harmless, a passing thought, a memory of something different and exciting. But the more I tried to push it away, the stronger it became. I'd be folding laundry or preparing dinner, and suddenly, his face would flash in my mind. I'd hear his voice, feel the weight of his hands, and my heart would race as if I were back in that room with him. Ryan noticed my change in demeanor, but he misunderstood its source. "You've been glowing lately," he remarked one morning as we sipped coffee on the porch. "It's like you're happier." I forced a smile. "Just feeling good, I guess," I replied, though inside I was torn. I loved Ryan deeply. He was my best friend, my rock, the man who had stood by me through everything. But something had shifted within me, something I couldn't ignore. About James, he had awakened a part of me I couldn't explain. It wasn't just physical, It was as though he had tapped into a hidden corner of my soul, one I didn't even know existed. One evening, while scrolling through my phone, I saw a message from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, it's James. Hope you don't mind me reaching out." My heart skipped a beat. I stared at the screen, torn between excitement and guilt. I knew I shouldn't respond, but my fingers betrayed me. Hey, how did you get my number?" I typed, my hands trembling. "Sarah had it from the group chat. I just wanted to check in. No pressure." I should have stopped there. I should have deleted the message and told Ryan. But I didn't. Instead, I replied, and that single response set everything in motion. Over the next few days, James and I exchanged messages. At first, it was casual small talk, jokes, and light conversations. But soon, the tone shifted. He asked how I'd been feeling since that night, and I couldn't lie. "I haven't stopped thinking about it," I admitted, my heart pounding as I hit send. "Neither have I," he replied almost instantly. His words were a match to the fire already burning inside me. I knew it was wrong. I knew we'd set rules to protect our marriage, but my longing for him outweighed my guilt. I told myself it was harmless, just a conversation, but deep down, I knew better. One afternoon, while Ryan was at work, James suggested we meet just to talk. He said, "No pressure." I hesitated. Every instinct told me to say no, to end this before it went too far, but curiosity and desire won out. We met at a small cafe on the outskirts of town, far enough from home to avoid running into anyone we knew. Seeing him again sent a wave of emotions crashing over me. Excitement, nervousness, guilt. "Thanks for coming," he said, his smile disarming. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. He had a way of making me feel seen, as though I were the only person in the world who mattered. It was intoxicating. When it was time to leave, he walked me to my car. I told myself this was just a meeting, nothing more. But as I turned to say goodbye, he stepped closer, his hand brushing mine. The tension between us was electric, and before I knew it, we were kissing. The guilt hit me like a tidal wave as I drove home. I told myself it was a one-time slip, a moment of weakness I'd never repeat. But deep down, I knew I was already in too deep. I told myself that kiss was the end of it, a mistake, a lapse in judgment, nothing more. But the truth gnawed at me, lingering in every quiet moment. James didn't make it any easier. His messages came more frequently, each one pulling me deeper into a web I was too weak to escape. He was charming, attentive, and persistent. And I was reckless. The first time James and I crossed the line, it felt surreal, like stepping into a world where nothing else mattered. He had a way of drawing me in, making me feel special in a way I hadn't felt in years. It started with stolen moments, lingering touches, and conversations that danced around the boundaries we should never have crossed. But once we did, there was no turning back. James suggested we meet at a quiet spot, a secluded park where we could talk without fear of being seen. As we sat on a bench overlooking a serene lake, the air between us was heavy with unspoken words. "I've missed you," he said, his voice low and filled with emotion. I looked away, my heart pounding, knowing I was in too deep. Our meetings became more frequent. Sometimes it was just a quick coffee. Other times we'd find ourselves wrapped up in each other in ways that felt both thrilling and devastating. The guilt weighed heavily on me, but the pull of being with James was impossible to resist. Each time I told myself it would be the last, yet I kept going back. He awakened something in me that I couldn't suppress, no matter how hard I tried. One evening, as we parted ways after another secret rendezvous, he took my hand and said, "I don't want this to end." His words were like a knife to my heart. I knew what I was risking, what I stood to lose. But in that moment, all I could think about was how alive I felt when I was with him. "Neither do I whispered, my voice trembling. As I drove home that night, tears blurred my vision. I loved Ryan deeply, but my actions were betraying everything we had built together. The weight of my choices pressed down on me, suffocating and inescapable. And yet, despite the turmoil, I knew I wasn't ready to let go of James. Not yet. "How was your day?" Ryan asked, his smile warm and genuine. "Good," I lied, my stomach churning. That night, as Ryan slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's events in my mind. I told myself it was a one-time thing, a mistake I'd never repeat. But deep down, I knew I was lying. James was a drug, and I was already addicted. I wish I could tell you that was the last time, that I found the strength to pull away and focus on my marriage. But James had become my escape, my secret thrill, and I couldn't let him go. It wasn't just about the physical connection, though that part of him was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. It was the way he made me feel alive, seen, and desired in a way I hadn't felt in years. Every message, every stolen moment with him was like a hit of adrenaline pulling me deeper into a world I couldn't resist. Our secret meetings became more frequent at coffee shops, motels, even a quiet corner in the park. We found ways to see each other whenever we could. I'd make excuses to Ryan, claiming I had errands to run or friends to meet. I hated lying to him, but the thought of losing what I had with James terrified me even more. "You're amazing, you know that?" James said one afternoon as we lay tangled together in the dim light of a motel room. I smiled, my heart swelling with a mix of pride and guilt. "You make me feel that way," I said. He kissed me, his touch sending shivers down my spine. "I wish we could have more than this," he murmured. His words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. More than this? What did that even mean? I pushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the way he made me feel in the moment. But the cracks in my double life were starting to show. Ryan wasn't oblivious. He'd started noticing the changes in me. "You've been distracted lately," he said one evening, as we sat on the couch, a movie playing in the background. "Is everything okay?" "Of course," I replied too quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Just a lot on my mind." Ryan frowned, but didn't press the issue. Still, his suspicion was evident, and it made me more cautious. I started deleting messages from James and became meticulous about hiding any trace of him. Despite my efforts, the guilt began to eat away at me. Every time Ryan kissed me or held my hand, I felt like a fraud. But no matter how much I hated myself, I couldn't stop. James had become an addiction, and I was powerless against it. One afternoon, as I was leaving to meet James, Ryan called out to me. "Where are you off to?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Just running some errands," I said, forcing a smile. "Want me to come with you?" My heart skipped a beat. "No, it's fine. Just boring stuff." Ryan studied me for a moment before nodding. "Okay, be safe." As I walked out the door, my stomach churned with anxiety. Ryan was getting suspicious, and I knew it was only a matter of time before he started digging deeper. But the thought of giving up James was unbearable. That evening, as I lay in bed beside Ryan, I realized I was living on borrowed time. One slip, one mistake, and everything I'd built with Ryan would come crashing down. Yet despite the risks, I couldn't stop myself. James was a high I couldn't quit, and I was willing to risk it all to keep feeling alive. I hadn't been prepared for what happened that night. No matter how many times I tried to convince myself that I could stop, that I could pull back from this tangled mess of lies, there was always another excuse, another moment that would push me deeper into the chaos. I was starting to feel like I was living in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. But tonight felt different. Tonight, I felt something was off, like the weight of everything had finally caught up with me. I'd been out with James earlier, just a quick meeting, that felt like a desperate attempt to escape the suffocating guilt I'd been feeling. As I pulled into the driveway, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ryan. "I'll be home late. Have a surprise for you." I didn't think much of it at the time. He'd been busy with work lately, so I figured it was just another late-night task he was working on. But as I walked into the house, something didn't sit right. The lights were dim, and the house was quiet, too quiet. I called out for Ryan, but there was no answer. I frowned and went toward the bedroom, thinking maybe he'd fallen asleep early or was just hiding out, planning his surprise. But when I opened the door, my breath caught in my throat. There, in the dim light, I saw Ryan with Sarah James's wife, the woman I'd been sneaking around with her husband to keep seeing. I froze, unable to speak, my heart racing as I watched them pull apart quickly, their faces filled with shock and fear. What is this?" I whispered, barely able to comprehend what was happening. Ryan stood up quickly, his face a mix of guilt and regret. I didn't mean for you to find out this way." Sarah quickly gathered herself, standing up from the bed as well. "This wasn't how it was supposed to happen," she said, her voice low and shaky. Tell me what's going on, I demanded, my voice rising in disbelief. Ryan stepped toward me, holding his hands out as though trying to calm me. I know this looks bad, but it's not what you think. Not what I think, I laughed bitterly. You're in here with her, Ryan. How long has this been going on? What do you mean it's not what I think? Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with remorse. It's not just him, she admitted softly. I've been seeing James for months too, and I know you've been seeing him as well. My world tilted on its axis. What? I said, the words barely leaving my lips. I'm sorry, Sarah continued. When we found out about what you were doing with James, we didn't know what else to do. We've all been hiding things from each other for so long. Ryan stepped in, his voice urgent. It started as a mistake, but then we got caught up in it. We didn't mean for things to get this far. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching a bad soap opera unfold in my own life. I couldn't process it. My husband and his affair partner had been meeting behind my back, while I had been doing the exact same thing with her husband. You've been seeing Sarah this entire time? I asked, the betrayal eating away at me. Ryan's face softened, and he nodded. I never meant for it to go this far, but once we got involved, we couldn't turn back. I was numb, unable to say anything for a long moment. The silence between us was thick and uncomfortable. Finally, I spoke. How could you, Ryan? How could you do this to me, to us? Ryan's eyes filled with sorrow. I don't have an excuse, but when we found out about you and James, it felt like everything we'd been hiding from each other finally came to light. We were both wrong, both of us. But you have to understand, I never stopped loving you. Tears began to well up in my eyes as I processed everything. The shock, the confusion, the heartbreak, it all collided at once. The life I thought I had was an illusion. I turned to Sarah, the woman I had once looked at with suspicion and jealousy. What about you? How could you betray your own marriage like this? Sarah's eyes were filled with shame. I didn't know how to deal with it either. I found comfort in you, in the idea that I wasn't the only one feeling this way. But we're all tangled up in a mess now. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream, to accuse them of everything they had done to me. But another part of me, the part that was still trying to make sense of this twisted reality, felt something I hadn't expected. Understanding. We've all messed up, I said quietly, staring at the floor. All of us. But this is not who we are. We need to figure this out. All of us. Ryan nodded slowly, his voice tentative. What do you want to do then? I don't want to lose you, but I know what I've done is unforgivable. Sarah stepped toward me, her expression softening. Maybe we can start over. Not just as couples, but as individuals. We've been living in denial for too long, pretending like everything was fine when it wasn't. I took a deep breath, my mind swirling with conflicting emotions. For the first time, I saw the bigger picture. We were all trapped in this web of lies, and if we ever wanted to find a way out, we had to be honest with ourselves and with each other. I don't know what's going to happen next, I said finally, my voice steady, despite the tears that threatened to fall. But we have to try, at least for ourselves, for our marriages. Ryan reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. We'll figure it out together. Sarah nodded in agreement. We have to. For the sake of our families. And so, despite the mess we had all created, there was a fragile understanding between us. We weren't sure how things would look going forward, but for the first time in a long time, we were being honest. And maybe, just maybe, that honesty would give us the chance to rebuild what we'd broken. It was messy, it was painful, but I had hope. For the first time in a long time, I had hope. In the days that followed, things didn't magically get better, but they didn't stay as bad as I thought they would. The air between us was thick with tension, but at least it was honest tension. For the first time in months, I could look at Ryan and not feel the burning guilt of my secret. He too seemed lighter somehow, though the weight of what we had done still lingered in the background. We made a decision to step back from everything, to give ourselves space to think and figure out what we truly wanted. No more games, no more secrecy, no more lies. We had to find a way to rebuild trust, both in ourselves and in each other. Ryan and I didn't talk about Sarah and James much after that night. The focus shifted from our messy entanglements to the silent understanding that we needed to work on our marriage. I don't know if it was the raw honesty that came with admitting everything, or just sheer exhaustion from the lies, but we started opening up in ways we hadn't in years. But we didn't rush things. We started going to therapy, each session feeling like we were peeling back the layers of pain we had built up over time, and slowly, we began to feel like we were on the same team again. There was still a lot of work to do. Healing didn't happen overnight, but I began to believe that maybe we could salvage something. As for Sarah and James, we all agreed that it was best to take a break for now. We needed to focus on ourselves, to deal with the wreckage we'd caused, before thinking about getting involved in any more complicated relationships. I can't say that everything was perfect after that, or that there weren't moments where I doubted our future. But there was something different this time. Something real. We had all been through something unimaginable, and it changed us, whether we liked it or not. I found myself looking at Ryan in a different way. It wasn't just about physical attraction anymore. It was about rediscovering who we were before everything fell apart. It was about understanding each other's flaws and accepting them. It was about knowing that, in the end, love wasn't just about the highs, it was about weathering the storms together. And maybe, just maybe, it was about learning to forgive, not just each other, but ourselves. The road ahead wasn't easy, but we were moving forward, one step at a time, together, and that was enough for me. As for James and Sarah, I didn't know what the future held for them. Maybe they too would find a way to make things work, or maybe their story was already over. But one thing was clear. The only thing we could control was ourselves, and the direction we chose to take from here on out. Life had thrown us curveballs we never expected, but as I lay next to Ryan, our hands intertwined, I knew we had a chance to make it work, because sometimes the hardest paths lead to the most meaningful destinations, and I was finally ready to walk that path with him,